Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Lamont. I've been a trader for about 6 years now, part of the Chart Guys team for about half that time, where I head up our futures room and the swing report. In this video, I'm going to hit you with some free trade ideas and also talk about how to determine key structures so that you can design your own trades as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. So starting off with MPC here, MPC is a trade that was originally designed back here, and it's actually shaken out many times already. Let's see, one, two, three, four times already. This trade zone's already worked out, and so this is pretty interesting because MPC is in the energy sector, and it's potentially a big old monthly bull flag. Very healthy consolidation, especially when you look at what the actual overall sector looks like. It doesn't look quite as good. There's still a bunch of supply over XLE. Even if you zoom into the daily structure right now, it's not really near its highs, whereas MPC is just hanging out, very healthy consolidation near its highs. So although this trade idea has already shaken out a few times, I see no reason why it wouldn't continue to shake out because this is simply just a large area of balance. So this trade idea, and let's get into how we determine the zone. So it's pretty obvious, right? I think to most people that this should be the key structure, right? After these buyers break out of here, where do they try to get to first? They try to take out this resistance. They do take out the resistance. They try to prevent backtest of the prior high and then advance from there, but they fail. Each time they get over this prior high, they fail. That being said, each time they hold this structure, right, they try to come back up here. So that's where the trade idea was designed around. Now you're probably looking over here and saying, hey, Lamont, there's a lower low here, right? Why wouldn't you guys stop out of that idea? The reason why is because I want to have a last ditch effort as well, or a last ditch zone to use for a little bit of wiggle room, because I don't want to assume that this structure is going to hold cleanly. So if this structure is going to hold, but it's not going to hold too cleanly, then, well, it should be somewhere in here where there's this tiny little bit of mess. I determined that because, well, I have to ask myself, okay, well, if this is my key structure, this guy is my key structure, that daily zone. I look to my left and I think, okay, well, what has made these lows over here? And it's probably this guy, right? And so we make that the extremes of our trade zone and we throw our stop on the other side of it. Lo and behold, just a little bit later, the point of control of that tiny little baby structure is what held price. Okay, I will include the original trade idea from the swing report or whatnot at the end of this video if you're interested. So you can mark this up for yourselves, and I personally think that it's very reasonable to continue to look for this same thing to occur again. This was our most recent permutation of the idea. It was slightly edited, but it's pretty much the same idea, and it did shake out again. So I think this is a pretty good one for anybody who's interested in energy names or if you're just a trader in general. So to carry on with the theme of picking key zones, I want to show you guys one of our ideas, KMX. Now KMX, full disclosure, was a banger back here. This one was our original, the first time we featured KMX, but it was also a chop and stop situation here, right? So I came up with this new idea later on. So let me just start with this one first. This idea was simply based off the fact that here you have all of this supply, and then we broke down from the supply. So the idea was very simple. The idea is if we come back up to the supply, but we can't trade through the supply, we should see lower lows. And if we were to see lower lows, then we'd probably maintain this large area of balance. Now, why didn't I aim for these extreme lows? Because the volume starts to taper off the further that we get. In fact, I don't even think this is right. I'm pretty sure we're aiming it for like this. I must have moved it by accident or something. Either way, you'll notice it comes into play yet again recently, right? Because this is how you do it. You select key zones. This zone must be traded through if these buyers want to advance. If these buyers cannot advance, then where they're going to try to get to, they're going to try to get back to where they just came from, which is exactly where they rush back to, this little area of balance. Such that if you lose this area of balance of support, they're probably going to try to come back down here where the volume picks back up again. So again, full disclosure, this was a chop and stop situation on the next time that I not recycle the idea, but recycle the ticker. And still, if you'll notice, this trade zone is designed around which structure? This structure, right? And so you actually do get 1, 2, 3 moves out of it. Now, when I was talking to subscribers about it, I said, I'm not really liking this anymore after this one or after this one, because even though they continue to reject from the key structure, sellers are doing what they have to do to get done. They weren't making lower lows, right? So each time they were defending off these buyers, the buyers were advancing a little bit. So it's kind of like if you're defending a fortification or something and you're like, eliminating waves of the invaders, but they just don't back up. Like, let's say you push them back the first time, you push them back 100 yards, they come back at you, you push them back only 75 yards, they come back at you, you push them back 50 yards. That's essentially what's happening here, right? And so eventually they do crack through that, right? But then where do they have problems? At this last key structure. So that's kind of how you want to look at it, right? There's always going to be key structures, and that's really where you want to design your trades around. All right, because they can come into play many times, just like this one came into play again here. Okay, let's see here. And then finally for GDX. So GDX was one of our trade ideas. We've been talking about it as well in these public videos. Finally hit our target, and so I still think this is a very reasonable trade zone for GDX. But at this point now, you really don't want these sellers. If you're a buyer, you really don't want the sellers to trade back down under these highs. So in my opinion now, this becomes essentially the key structure. It's really this guy, right? Because this structure here was the problem the first time that it was problematic coming out of this area. So I'm just continuing to use this guy as a reference, as a key. And I know that, okay, well, as long as they don't trade through this guy, then they should be trying to come up here, just like when they traded through it over here, came up here, right? Traded through it, came up here and even higher highs, held it, tried to come back here and failed. And then now we've held another back test of it. They should be trying to get here, such that as long as we're holding over this area, then they should be trying to come here. So this is a very reasonable trade idea now. Something like this, trying to come all the way back up there. Okay, so that is pretty much it. Couple of ideas, couple of sentiments for you to, I don't know, think about, food for thought. And again, I will include the MPC original setup video for MPC at the end of this if you stay tuned. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for sharing some of your time and energy with me, and I hope to see you guys soon. Farewell. What's going on, everybody? So for our first pick within the energy sector is going to be MPC. So MPC, bigger picture, is looking pretty solid. Just made a pretty major move over, all-time high, prior all-time high resistance into new all-time highs. Tons of space for a monthly higher low to be set over 104.32. Weekly time frame is potentially a bull flag, and it's a pretty good context for it as well. Essentially a negated head and shoulders. This is a lot of follow-through over this prior high, such that really the goal for these buyers is to just really hold over here. And if you'll notice, they didn't quite touch down to it. Right, so the back test of this prior high, so far the sellers have failed to even get down there. It's a notable failure because, well, the goal for the sellers is to negate this change, and they have to negate this change by getting back under this high. So an inability to do so would suggest that they are relatively weak in this moment. And now we've had all of this sideways here built up. This is all a demand zone now that we've broken out of it, such that if we were to back test it, we would probably expect more balance, above this structure and under this guy, as long as this little 15-minute structure continues to hold as support, right? We have this little guy over here, which was problematic for these buyers here. And then if you'll notice when we scroll back out, this low is pretty much right up the value area high. And so is this one. So I'm thinking if these buyers are going to continue to press on and make an attempt at another all-time high crack, then they should hold this structure as support. You definitely don't want to lose this guy. Seems pretty key. And so that's why our trade zone is as such. 2.46% risk, not that bad. And I will likely look for plays once this structure gets back tested. So I'll probably look for a session-to-session play. That's it. We shall see. Yeah, and the targeting is really just based off the all-time high resistance, and also if we zoom out to the, not zoom out, but if we change to our pivot point indicator, then the pivot points for the month is right at 151.28. So, just looking for a chop here, but I'm thinking if they do hold this pivot for the month, they should be trying to get to R1. Okay, so that is it for MPC, and nope, that's it. See y'all really soon for the other trade ideas.